I'd like to start the meeting of the Greenwood Advisory Plan Commission for Monday, January 22nd, 2024. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. King to approve the minutes and a second by Ms. Gardner. Any questions or discussions about it? Not all in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. Are there any special requests or continuances? Seeing none, are there any findings of fact? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. I'd like to make a note that Mr. Walker, who is a member of the Plan Commission, due to a conflict of interest, is not in attendance tonight. So we have 8 members here. Requires 6 to approve any motions.
5.
5, I'm sorry, 5 of 9.
You will not be participating in this petition.
Okay, the first item of old business is PC 2023-071. This is a zone map change. Apollo Developers LLC petitioner requests a zone map change for approximately 113.5 acres. The current zoning in the district is AG, agricultural, and the proposed zoning district will be a mix of residential. This is a public hearing. We have a very large crowd tonight, so please hold comments to yourselves so that the other people in attendance can hear the proceedings. As it is a public hearing, we're going to allow 15 minutes to the petitioner and those speaking in favor for the presentation of evidence, comments, and questions in support of the matter. That'll be followed by 15 minutes to remonstrators and persons appearing in opposition to the case for the presentation of evidence, comments, and questions in opposition to the case. Then we'll allow 5 minutes to the petitioner and those speaking in favor for rebuttal of remonstrators' evidence, comments and questions, and closing remarks. And that will be followed by 5 minutes to the remonstrators and persons appearing in opposition to the case for closing remarks. As I stated at the beginning, this is the Greenwood Advisory Plan Commission. What will happen tonight is the commission will do one of 3 things. We'll either approve a motion to approve the proposed zone map change. We'll deny.
You will make a recommendation. Favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation. Then the petition will be sent to the Common Council. The Common Council will make the final decision whether to rezone the property, as zoning is a legislative act.
Okay, is there someone here who is going to begin for the petitioner?
While the petitioner walks up here, I would like to note this petition was amended. We did get an amended petition submitted to our office that removed the RMC apartment zoning. That is now replaced with RA, residential attached, and the petitioner can talk more about that.
So petitioner, please state your name and address and then begin. Oh, you have to be sworn in. I'm sorry. Anybody who's going to speak either for or against this, please rise at this point. Raise your hand and you'll be sworn in.
Do you swear under penalties for perjury that testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge?
I do. Okay, thank you.
And one other announcement, we do have a sign-in sheet for those who have spoke to write your name and address so that our recording secretary can get that accurately into the minutes. It's available by the podium.
Someone on the back, so they can't hear. If I teach
IT, could you check the volume? Some people in the back are saying they're having difficulty hearing. In addition to that, we will try very hard to speak up in addition to the speaker system.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll turn it over to the petitioner at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Eric Prime, Van Baylor Law Firm, on behalf of the petitioner, Apollo Development, and the landowners, the Walker family. At the prior meeting, as you know, there was a continuance by agreement, so we didn't have the opportunity to present to you at that point. What I'm going to do this evening is kind of start out with the presentation that we would have made a couple of weeks ago, and then I'm going to quickly diverge and show you the difference between the plan that would have been presented 2 weeks ago and the plan that we're presenting tonight. As the planning director noted, there has been an amendment to the plan and a substantial change to the proposed site plan. So we'll go through that as we move along. This project is Walker Commons. As I noted, the developer, the master developer for the plan is Apollo. The Walker family are the current property owners. My firm is serving as land use attorneys, and Y Engineering is the civil and design engineer. Walker Commons is a legacy project for the Walker family. It will carry their name, and they obviously are concerned about how it will look, how it will be, and what kind of a add it will be to the city. My client has gone through a substantial due diligence process to get to this point. It's been about a year in the making to get here, with multiple design ideas and ideas floated with staff and with other city personnel. So that would include engineering site studies. A traffic study is underway that will be prepared prior to the planning process. They've studied the drainage, they've studied utility availability, they've studied the impact on the schools. We've had 2 separate meetings with Dr. Long at Center Grove Schools. All of this area that we're talking about here today will be served by Center Grove Schools. The last meeting with him was just last week. And then we've also taken the opportunity to be very diligent and thoughtful in the design process, walkability, pedestrian connections, variety of the housing stock, including paired patio for 55 and older restricted community, a traditional single family, a couple of different versions of that, and then townhomes, and finally large estate lots. Amenities will be included in these communities, including a dog park, pickleball courts, and other linear trails. The schedule, just so everyone knows, if these approvals are obtained in a timely manner, we anticipate starting infrastructure improvements this winter, but the first homes probably wouldn't be built until the winter of 2025 because of all the utility and infrastructure work that would be necessary to get them build ready. First residents would probably come in the summer of 2026, and this plan as shown would not be fully built out until 2030 or 2031, just based on typical build out process. So the site location that we're here about this evening are these 3 parcels that are outlined in the hatched areas. We have 1 parcel north of Main Street and 2 south of Main Street, flanking the existing church and school. This is the Walker family farm. Our request this evening is for a rezoning from the current agricultural zoning to change the zone map to, on the north parcel, RA for single family detached homes, on the southeast parcel, a combination of RA for rear load single family detached, RL for the 85-foot estate lots, and then on the southwest side, a request for RA that would permit the paired patio, age restricted 55 and older product, and the townhomes. And as you can see, based upon the other zoning classifications in the area, if we look at that north parcel, it is surrounded by RA to the west, RM to the east, and RMC on both sides. The southern southeastern parcel has RM basically around it with the school. And then the southwestern parcel has RM and multifamily on the north. So all of these requests are in keeping with and compatible with the existing character of the area. I want to show you next This is where I said I was going to diverge quickly and show you what the old plan was versus what we are proposing this evening. If you look on the left, that was the plan that was originally presented versus the plan on the right, which is the new plan. The northern section really did not change much, so I'm going to concentrate on the two southern parcels. If you look at the southwest parcel on the left side, the large pink area is where we had designated to be the multifamily portion that would have been developed by the Garrett companies. That is now out, as your planning director indicated. That has been replaced by townhomes and paired patio single family residences that were, the townhomes originally were on the east side, north of the yellow large lots. Those have been moved to the west side and reduced by 30%. There were 100 of them on the east side. There are now 70 on the west side. And then the single family homes that were on the west side in orange have been moved to the east side above the yellow large lots, so that now that section is all entirely single family homes. And then the paired patio area has expanded to fill in where the single family homes used to be on the southwest side. I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to go through each one of these very quickly, section by section, so you can see them in more detail. But I did want to show you the differences between the old plan and the new. That's a density differential of minus 40%. So a reduction in density of 40% from what was originally proposed to what we're proposing this evening. And when we discussed density really quickly, I wanted to show you, I know it's difficult to read, but the density for the northern section is 2.4 units per acre. On the east side of that, the Westridge subdivision is 4.2 units per acre. To the west, Stony Brook is 2.9 units per acre. To the north, Whispering Trails is 1.9. The Bay Shore apartments are 11 units per acre, as one would expect with apartments. So that area is going to be less dense than everything but the Whispering Trails area to the north. And then when you look at the other areas to the south, the Coopers is 2.8 units per acre. Our southeastern parcel will be 2.4. Green Valley nearest to there is 1.9. The other section of Green Valley, actually, I think that is Hunter Creek, is 3.3. And then our southwest parcel is 5.3 with the townhomes and the paired patio. So again, the density is in keeping with what's in the area. And comparing the old plan to the new plan, the old plan was 5.1 units per acre, all told. The new plan is 3.1, all with everything combined and average. So looking at the north section, this is the piece that would be north of Main Street. As you can see, the Walkers over the years have given over quite a bit of their ground to utility easements. The large green diagonal slash coming down through the middle of that parcel is a gas line easement that we are not allowed to touch or build in. So that kind of separates that subdivision. There's also a transmission line, electric transmission line going diagonally across the northwest corner that prohibits anything being built in that area. So we are kind of constrained in how we can lay this out, especially when you factor in the proposed detention ponds that are going to be needed. So this will be a proposed RA. The reason for RA rather than RM is that it allows for some differential in side yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks, which we need to accommodate kind of the puzzle piece to work around these easements. But there will be a commitment that these will all be single family detached homes, no paired patio, no townhomes up in this section. And that is in keeping with the houses around on both sides. Total number of lots will be 94. The builder is going to be David Weekly Homes. And there will be connectivity provided through this neighborhood to the neighborhood to the north and to the neighborhood to the west. Since about 2007, the city has had in its transportation plan a connector road through here. And in our discussions, we actually are showing that proposed connector to go north-south along eastern side of this area where it will be just available to anybody to use. Our subdivision will actually access off of that connector road in 2 spots. As you can see, there's one to the south and one a little further north. Home prices in this area will be about $400,000. These will be new construction for sale, not rentals. The next section I want to look at is the southeastern section. This is the area that's all single family detached. The orange part is a new product for Greenwood. It's also David Weekley. They're building these up at Noblesville and in a couple areas on the north side. These are rear load homes, so they will actually be accessed by alleys that are in behind the homes. Again, these homes will be high 300s, probably low 400s, to be available for some first-time home buyers, some up buyers, but provide a nice footprint for folks that are with young families. And then as you get into the yellow area, I'm sorry, there will be 61 of those rear load lots. And with the dog park incorporated in between those 2 areas, that's open and available to the public. Then the yellow area, the southeastern area, is going to be RL. Those will be 85-foot wide lots, single family detached, a total of 46 lots that will be developed by Dries. Dries anticipates, and they're building a very similar product on the north side as well, that those are selling in the 750 range. They think these will also be in that range, probably starting in the 600s, but averaging in the 700s. So that's a product that Greenwood doesn't have a whole lot of right now, and that price range, it'll bring in a nice diversity of housing stock. And then finally, on the southwest portion, we'll have a mix of townhomes and paired patio homes. So let me address the townhomes first. Those will be the furthest north. The townhomes that face Main Street will be the top right section that you see there with that are actually rear load townhomes. So from Main Street, you'll see that. You'll see the fronts of those, but not any garages. And then the other section on the cul-de-sac going over toward the church will be front load. So again, on Main Street, you'll see the rear of those, and again, no garages, because all the garages will be down that cul-de-sac for those front load style, and they'll be accessed by alleys. The garages will on the rear load style that will be up closer to the road. Those are a Dries product as well. There are 70 of those total, and some of them will be 2-story. The front loads are 2-story, the rear loads are 3-story townhomes. Again, for sale product, not a rental product. And then in this section, there will be pickleball courts and other amenities. Then the paired patio homes will be Fisher homes, Fisher product. There will be 42 buildings, 84 pairs of homes there. Those will be age restricted, 55 and older, and will serve, in our view, as a buffer between the existing single family homes, which are for the most part ranch style homes, moving to the townhomes. And all of those single family paired patio villas will be ranch style homes. They'll just have 2 patios in the rear, but otherwise will look fairly similar to other homes in the area. And just to carry out that thought, this was, to our view, a good spot to do a transition. So if you go from west, single family homes existing, to the east, you get the paired patio villas, then you get the townhomes, and then you get to the church and school. If you go from the south, same deal, you get the paired patio homes, you get the townhomes, and then across the street, you get the existing apartments. So it's a good transitional area to the 2 single family home sections that we have to the north and then a little bit further east. So I want to get into the record the statement of reasons and the statutory criteria.
1 minute.
Yep. So I'll just say very quickly, and then I can do this in the rebuttal, but we submitted the statement of reasons with statutory criteria. Staff agrees that our statutory criteria have been met, that this is request complies with comprehensive plan, and complies with the current conditions and character of the area and the most desirable use, and the request will not negatively affect property values, and it is considered responsible development and growth. Staff agreed with all of the reasons that we listed in our petition, and that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the record, we'll show we finished up about 9 seconds early, so that will not affect the remonstrators. If you're going to speak for the remonstrators, please come forward. We'll have 15 minutes.
My name is Patrick Olmsted, and I've prepared a written remonstrance that I'd like to hand out with your permission.
It can be entered into the record.
I get on my card. Thank you for checking on this. All right. I'm Patrick Olmsted. I've been a resident of Greenwood since 1977, living in Hunting Creek since 2005. I'm one of the people within 300 feet. I'm also an attorney. I was here on January 8th and volunteered to help present the concerns of the citizens. We prepared a 17-page remonstrance. I apologize. I didn't realize that you might want a written statement, so I prepared that today. I apologize for not getting that to you early. That remonstrance is going to cover generally 4 topics: our objections, the methodology we use for soliciting concerns and proposed solutions, our concerns along with those proposed solutions, and our recommendations regarding the vote. Methodology, we solicited input multiple ways through change.org petition, which has over 1,000 signatures as of tonight. The survey drafted with the help of AI, which had hundreds of surveyed people. We had multiple in-person meetings. I attended over 12 hours of those. We had door-to-door discussions in the neighborhoods, including distributing flyers that are contained in the back of that remonstrance, asking people to fill in or go to the QR code that had that survey to provide their input. We also solicited their feedback while we were there. We also went on to Facebook and the Nextdoor app. That's described in the remonstrance. We do want to thank the developer. We applaud them for the changes that they have made since January 8th. That was based on feedback from January 4th. Unfortunately, not very many people were able to go to that. I apologize, but I did not know, otherwise I would have been. But we thank you for that. We've tried to organize our thoughts in various buckets. And so starting with our objections. Generally speaking, we're concerned that this is presented to you as a 3-parcel package. With due respect, we think that that is difficult for us. These are 3 separate parcels. They're not contiguous. They abut different pieces of land, and they've got 3 different types of concerns. These are not adjoining lots, and then we have only 15 minutes to respond to all those concerns from 3 different lots. Bob Bitterman counted, we've got 22 different neighborhoods that we've taken concerns from. As it is, you get less than 30 seconds per neighborhood. That said, we're going to move forward with our objections and thoughts. Our main 5 concerns that I'll go through in detail traffic, infrastructure, connections to the existing neighborhoods, the multifamily zoning, and then drainage concerns. As for traffic, residents overwhelmingly expressed concerns about the increased traffic congestion, specifically on Smith Valley Road and Main Street. Their proposed solutions were to widen those arteries and or provide roundabouts to avoid left turns. I spoke with our planning director who confirmed that there's no present plan to widen Smith Valley Road east of Library Park, although there is a feasibility study that is likely to happen. It is unknown how the impending roundabouts at Avery and Greenwood schools will impact that study. In addition, there's no current plan to widen Main Street. There's also no plan for the roundabouts that we suggest. Another concern of the residents is that the traffic study is happening after the rezoning. While I understand that that is how the process normally works, it's difficult here because there are specific solutions such as having a cut through from Main Street through all the way to Smith Valley in that southeast lot that Eric showed you, that make a big difference on how the public perceives this. If it goes all the way through to Smith Valley, then that lessens the impact on Leah Lane and Green Valley because it would be a superior alternative. People would simply drive from Main Street through that road to Smith Valley. They wouldn't go through that neighborhood. Similarly, I don't think that people would go through Hunting Creek if they had that alternative. By contrast, though, we haven't done this study. We don't know that Smith Valley is going to be approved because of how our process is designed. And if that goes, if that goes back to the original plan, and there's a cul-de-sac instead of a road that goes all the way through to Smith Valley, then people will be going through the neighborhoods such as Green Valley and Hunting Creek. As far as infrastructure, the residents are concerned about the ability of the existing infrastructure, roads, sewers, drainage systems to handle the increased demand from the development. They're also concerned about city services, especially the impact on the schools. The residents fear that development will negatively impact the schools, leading to larger class sizes and decreased quality of education. There were numerous anecdotal pieces of evidence from a wide variety of respondents about the challenges that we already have. While I respect the idea of reaching out to an interim superintendent and asking them what they think, that's not the same as a study as to how this is likely to affect what's already going on and how that fits with each other development that is happening now. We're concerned about this because that does affect our property values, what we moved into. The citizens recommend that we try to improve the storm sewers prior to the development. They recommend zoning this with single family residential with decent lot sizes similar to the surrounding neighborhoods to keep the same character and avoid straining the infrastructure. Third item of concern was connections to the existing neighborhoods. None of the neighborhoods wants to be connected to these developments. That's a large concern, at least for the immediate neighbors. I understand that the planning director supports that, believes that that's part of good urban planning. But I would respectfully note that Kyle Jones did some research for this project, found 18 dead-end streets and 66 neighborhoods without the type of connections that we're proposing here. Perhaps the reason people find Greenwood attractive is precisely because we don't have connected neighborhoods and you can safely let the kids play in certain streets without great fears as it is. Certainly that is the reason why we moved to our area. Talking about my family. I'm not sure we're being listened to on that. Hidden Valley Estates and Villa Heights do not have sidewalks. Speaking from experience, burying a child or a grandchild is a terrible experience. And I'm not sure that we're putting the right variables on each side of the cost benefit analysis. We're the ones who are going to be placed in harm's way. And I think we ought to be listened to. Fourth topic is the multifamily zoning. I wasn't sure about some of the designations Eric was mentioning. When I looked at the comprehensive plan, it's got different zoning listed on it. But it looks to me like this is multifamily residential for at least 2 of the lots. I am concerned that they're improper comparators. For example, in the southwest lot, it's all multifamily. There's going to be adjoining lots, there's townhomes. None of the adjoining neighborhoods have that feature. They are all single-family residential. Now, what he calls residential large is an 85-foot lot. That's what mine is in Hunting Creek. I didn't know it was residential large, but I've never heard of that before today. The comprehensive plan calls it single-family residential. That's what I think we are. And that's what the comprehensive plan suggests is appropriate here. That's what's been in the plan. That's what the citizens want as well. The developers are not going to live in these apartments in town or in the townhomes and shared patios. They're going to continue to live in Fishers and Noblesville in their single family detached housing with reasonable lot sizes, just like we want to and what we want our neighbors to. Last topic is drainage. The neighborhoods surrounding the fields already have drainage issues. We're concerned about the watershed. We spoke with the planning director today, described some of those issues that they exist now. Agricultural land has a certain absorption rate. It's markedly better than concrete and roofs. We're worried about the watershed and worried about the proposed plans to move that water. When I asked about scraping off topsoil or removing drain tile, I was met with silence, really. But each of these fields is tiled. They're raised up. I mean, I cannot see from my house to Main Street because the highest place in the area is in the field on the southwest lot. That water runs from the middle of the field down towards us. I provided a picture inside of the remonstrance taken by Brad Nemeth, who's here today, showing the water that flows in there now. You've got a convergence of water now coming from the field, also hitting where the storm sewers are at the same time. And it makes a little pond. Then it's supposed to drain down into Hidden Valley. It doesn't do a great job of it now. And once we get rid of that farmland and replace it with concrete and roofs, sidewalks and roads, we're worried that it's going to be worse. They've got a complicated plan to take the water from the southwest corner of the southwest lot and somehow get a rain garden about 6 foot long, catch water, move it down 4 feet, and then somehow run that northeast across that entire plot to a new pond that they're going to put in. They think it's going to be up to 6 foot, maybe 4 foot different in elevation, but they think that'll be enough. I'm worried about the back pressure of that pond filling up. But then that water is going to run over to Greenwood Christian, to their pond, then it's going to run across the street on Main Street, go to a different pond, and then start shedding away. That's an awful complicated plan. Following Occam's razor, I would suggest that a simpler solution would be, with less variables, is put a pond there at the southwest corner. My worry is that they've got a plan, which is nice, but if it doesn't work, we're the ones left with the problem. In conclusion, see that I have 2 minutes. Profits are not a 4-letter word. It's about capitalism. but there's a difference between making reasonable profits versus obscene profits. We're asking you to vote against this. They're presenting it as a take it or leave it, all three at once. We just don't think that it fits. We've listened to approximately 2,000 people. And that's taken an extraordinary amount of time for our volunteers to do. But we're happy to do it. We're trying to provide them voices. If you don't vote against it, we would ask for a commitment from the developer to build in a substantially similar manner as to what's in this plan, that you attach it and require it. We would also ask that the traffic analysis be done separately for each section as well as the aggregate whole. We're concerned about how many more cars and people we can add to our existing infrastructure. And we really want the city planning department to work on this traffic analysis carefully and work with the citizens.
No cut through road.
We've got about 30 seconds if someone else wanted to add something to that on the demonstrators. Please state your name and address.
Patrick already introduced my name. My name is Kyle Jones. I live 566 Poplar Drive, just north of Smith Valley Road. To talk about the connections real quick, in some of these neighborhoods, the streets are narrower without sidewalks and street lights going through those neighborhoods. Specific owners and the majority do not really want them added in. We like our community the way it is. We feel safe walking on our streets with our families, friends, and neighbors. And while we understand that connections may be required, if they are required, we are requesting to have some specific items put into place to help detour, deflect, and slow down and mitigate traffic through some of these connections that may be made, not just within our own neighborhoods without sidewalks, but all the neighborhoods that are affected by it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's time. We now will move on to allowing 5 minutes to the petitioner to speak in favor for rebuttal of remonstrators evidence.
Thank you again, Eric Prime, Van Baden Law Firm, for the record. A couple of, or actually pretty much a majority of the issues that the remonstrators have with this project are things that are yet to come during the planning process. We're talking about drainage, connectivity, traffic flow. All of those things are handled during that planning and engineering process. What we're here about this evening is just a change in the permitted use of the ground from agricultural to residential. So that's not to blow any of that off or make it sound like it's not important. All of that is very important and it will be addressed at the appropriate time. But we are willing to work with these folks and have made it very clear that we're willing to work with them on these connections. And we change in our plan from the beginning to now was to show what was originally a cul-de-sac at the end of Smith Valley Road to a connection. And so that was a big change from the initial plan to the new plan, was to have that through street and take pressure off the connections in the area in Green Valley there. So we are willing to have those discussions and work with those folks. I would say with regard to drainage, as the board knows, we are not permitted post-construction to have a runoff rate greater than the pre-construction numbers. So right now it's a farm field on all sides that just sheets in different directions. Once the engineering is done on this project, the grading will be different and it will all be taken into consideration to have the retention, keep the runoff rates no greater than what they are now. And in a lot of times, the engineering that's done when development comes in is actually, it creates a better, more compatible system for the drainage and stormwater treatment than bare farm fields do, because they don't follow rules. It's just ground. So if you can engineer it and you can take that water and hold it in ponds and move it in a better manner, then you can certainly, in a lot of cases, alleviate issues that are present now. Staff is favorable to our presentation. We would ask that the plan commission also forward a favorable recommendation to the council. I wanted to mention very quickly that in our discussions with Dr. Long, we didn't just reach out to them and have vacant conversations. We had specific conversations about this project, about the amount of impact that it would have on the schools. He is perfectly fine with it. They have no objections to this. They have a long-range plan for enrollment management. They've already purchased ground to build a new elementary school at Honey Creek and Smoky Road. And he said this was all within their plans, and they had no issues with the impact on the school. So it wasn't just a, hey, we reached out. There was a specific result of that conversation. One other thing, with regard to rentals, we can't prohibit rentals. That's a HUD violation. But what we can do is put in guardrails. And so every single one of these sections of homes, including the townhomes, including the paired patio homes, will have a maximum 20% at any given time rental. So for instance, out of 70 townhomes, no more than 14 of those can be in rental at a given time. If you're the 15th owner and you want to put yours up for rental, you've got to wait until someone drops off that list. In addition, we will put in a minimum 1-year lease term. So no short-term rentals, no Verbos, no Airbnbs. It will be a minimum 1 year in order to rent. So those two things really assist with the concern about rentals. And moreover, both the townhomes and the paired patio homes will be maintenance free. The HOAs will take care of the mowing, the plowing, the exterior maintenance. And so that will alleviate issues with renters who sometimes the concern is they don't keep up their houses like others do. The HOA will take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wish to add on to the petitioner? If not, we'll move on to the 5-minute for the remonstrators and persons appearing in opposition for closing remarks.
Patrick Olmsted again. If there's anyone else who wants to come up, let me know so I don't take your time. I appreciate that they've got a plan for dealing with the water. And I think it's nice that they've got rules that prohibit post-construction runoff being different than pre-construction runoff. They kind of beg the question, since we already have flooding, what's the runoff rates now? We've got people north of the north lot who talk about having boats that they set out on the flood. And I looked at them and said, you can't be serious. They're like, oh, no, we got boats. I was shocked when I saw Brad Neath's pond. I've helped my neighbor replace a fence already because it was getting washed away and rotted because there's too much water coming up on it. We had to move that up half of his yard. That's existing now. My stormwater drains in my neighborhood, we got sinkholes because they're collapsing because they can't handle what we've got. We're adding in more. And my worry is that we're adding in an unnecessary amount. Single family residential would be fine here. That's not what they're asking for, and therefore we ask that you reject it. And as far as their proposed solution, at the end of the day, they're going to ask the homeowners association to follow the rules, or a little manual that they're going to put together, as explained to me by the planning director today. My concern is, it's nice to tell someone else to fix a problem, but if they don't have the resources or the capacity to actually fix the problem, sternly written letter isn't going to hold back water. We've got a chance to do this right. We've got a chance to do this well. And I would ask that that's what we try to do. And I don't think that this product that they're offering right now to us is well conceived. And based on the citizens that I've listened to, including the standing room back here today, we'd ask that you please give it an unfavorable recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. We've still got a couple of minutes. Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Need to be sworn in. And we have 2 minutes, so
Do you swear under penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do.
can you state your name and address?
My name is Brian Bean. I live at 1744 Pathway Drive North in Greenwood, Indiana, in the Ashwood Homeowners Association. I've lived there for 20 years. Auburn Trace has been flooding ever since the city annexed us and raised Emery Road from a country crown road back when Mike Richards was engineer. And what happens is Auburn Trace, which comes from north east Greenwood into a concrete chute we had to pour, stops in our retention pond. And it can't get through the conduits because of back pressure to go through Auburn Trace. You're thinking, what does this have to do with Walker? Because of the lack of planning by the city of Greenwood in these annexations, the continued water pressure that comes from these developed areas continues to come into our neighborhood in Ashwood. And we're not talking about the property coming up just south of Emery Road that you're getting ready to talk about, the apartment complexes. So our concern is in Ashwood, our 125 residents, is that we pay for our own street repairs. We asked you to vacate our street years ago because you couldn't handle the failing drainage that was happening. We put in our own seawall to the tune of $500,000 to keep your flooding waters from entering the back of our homes. And we ask that the commission review the drainage issues at hand along Emery Road and it goes through Auburn Trace before you continue to flood these homes and cause further damage to the communities. We are part of the city, even though we don't use any of your services. We have the White River Township Fire Department, Center Grove Schools. We did have the Sheriff's Department had patrols. We never see police cars today. But we would at least like you to look at the drainage issue and what this development will cause. Pay attention to what's going on in the community. That's why this room is full. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the 5 minutes available for rebuttal.
I just got one quick thing to ask. All right,
Please, could you give your name and address?
Tim Welch, 1256 Severn Court.
You'll need to be sworn in too. Oh, you'll
I already have.
okay.
Just one thing, I know you talked to Center Grove Schools. The way things work now, you can go pretty well anywhere you want to. So you need to really talk to Greenwood Schools also, because these homes are going to be close to Greenwood Schools, and there may be a lot of them wanting to transfer into the Greenwood system. I know we're kind of busting at the seams now, so probably be a good idea to talk with the Greenwood school system also to see what they can handle on this. Just the way kids can transfer around now, so any school they want to.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Pallotti, we have some letters to put in the record.
Written objections have been filed.
Yes, we have a handout of written objections that we'd like to pass one down. Take one, pass one down for your review.
Thank you. We've got a stack of things to at least review somewhat. Chair would listen to a motion for a 5-minute recess so we could review some of this. Is there one?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lexi, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, please so by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. 5-minute recess.
Close the hearing.
No, 5-minute recess. Please hold the sound down a little bit so we can have some concentration with what we're doing up here. Okay, we're gonna come back to order. We've got a 5-minute recess that we're curtailing at this point. I did get up at one point during this and stop over and had a question for the planning director, and I would like to do that question publicly. Oh, yes. Hearing is closed, and we're going into a public discussion among the commission. My question for the planning director was, are the paired patio homes, the ones in the townhomes in that area, are they considered single-family residence by the by ordinance and by definition within a comprehensive plan?
Yeah, and I think this whole area, the characteristic of this area with this single family, the apartments across the street, et cetera, this typical land development is in line with the surrounding areas. The renderings and conceptual plans I've seen show that you would own your half of the building. That would be your lot, similar to a attached single family home. So I do feel that it complies with our comprehensive plan with the characteristics of the community around these parcels. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I have some questions regarding the schools, and be to Mr. Prime. When you spoke with Center Grove, did you speak with any of the other schools districts, the superintendents, or even Greenwood Christian Academy themselves? Did you speak with any of them and their capacity to handle 355 units minus 84 pairs of 55 plus? We may still have children that are of school age.
Right, we did not, the entire area that we're developing is in the Center Grove School District, so we concentrated on Center Grove. Happy to have those discussions if we need to.
And I think we are getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves because your proposal is for a change of zoning. It's not what you're going to do exactly yet. It's just to change the zoning. So that's what we're here to decide, right?
Correct.
But some of the things that will help us decide is, do we have the capacity to change zoning from agricultural to residential? Have you talked to public safety? Have you done any of that digging? Have we had any public safety studies or conversations as to whether or not the capacity of 355 units could take it on?
Yeah, we've done some preliminary TAC meetings, but that is again one of those things, you get all the checkpoint agencies when you go through the planning process. So the fire department, the police, the utilities, all of those folks weigh in at that point.
I have a question for planning. Can you remind me how the comprehensive plan is? Are we working with?
Yes, so the comprehensive plan, which has inside of it, there's a document called the future land use map. That map does designate all three of these parcels as future single family, as I think our petitioner and the demonstrators noted. Along with that, it does describe that, it does say a mix of different characteristics, different designs. We're not looking for necessarily a monotonous area, but we want to have a diversity of housing.
And
The
how old
plan
is,
is
how
from
old is
two
the
thousand
plan?
seven. The age is 2007, it was the 2007 to 2027 comprehensive. plan.
Yeah, the one I'm referencing, 2007, it had minor updates in 2012. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the comprehensive plan said before 2007. I would honestly assume it would still be residential. We're currently working on our next iteration of our comprehensive plan. There's actually an update on it on the agenda tonight, if you're curious to stick around. Right now, we have a draft land use map, and that draft does also show residential.
So just to restate what you just said, since at least 2007, this land has been designated or intended to be someday residential use.
Correct. I know there's been attempts in the past. Typically, it's been the cost of sanitary sewer that has prevented it from going through this process. But yes, since 2007.
Did the Western Interceptor project help with the sewer situation here? Or is that unrelated?
I'll let Mark correct me if I'm wrong, but it is unrelated. The developer is tasked with getting the sewer to these properties and serving these properties. Right now, the current sewer is at capacity, so they will need to develop the sewer for this essentially on their own.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. The overall density for the project would be 350 units per 113 acres. That's 3 units per acre average. Would you consider that high density or low density based on your ordinance? 3 units per acre.
It'd be an average density for residential areas. Density, it could be in an apartment building would obviously have much more density, but this is a pretty average density. It matches the surrounding neighborhoods density pretty well in line.
Thank you.
More questions?
I just have one more.
Yeah.
Dave, has there been any more detailing on how we should look at traffic in that area or in plans? I know we have plans, but changing from agricultural to residential, that's a huge difference in traffic. So what's the plan there? What have we done?
Yeah, so as part of staff's recommendation is a favorable recommendation for this petition. We did include 8 different conditions that we would propose that if you move forward with this, that you incorporate into your motion. The first one is that a traffic impact study shall be required. Again, this is just the zoning change. A lot of the technical and engineering work will happen during the site development, during the primary plat, during the secondary plat, and our residential site plan phase. One of the things we highlighted is that we're going to evaluate the direct access from Smith Valley Road to Main Street as part of this traffic study. And a lot of these traffic questions are really more appropriate at the site development phase. We have an outside review consultant. We have a great staff of planners and engineers who will work with us and work with the petitioner to make sure everything's developed in accordance with our ordinance.
I would just add to that too, the way a traffic impact study works is the study will evaluate the existing conditions. It'll look at a future year, or horizon year without the development, and it'll look at the future year with the development. And the developer will be required to address any deficiencies they create with their development. So if there's an intersection that currently functions appropriately, and it functions appropriately in a future year, and when this development comes along, it does not function appropriately, they will have to build infrastructure to address those operational issues. So I know there was some discussion tonight on roundabouts was an item that was brought out, and if the entrances to this subdivision don't operate appropriately, if they affect mainline traffic on Main Street or Smith Valley Road, that is an option we would evaluate to address those traffic concerns.
And it would be the developer's responsibility to take care of it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We were talking about the 3 lots per acre, is that what you said?
3.1.
Average density.
Okay. That's 14,000 square feet per lot. That's a pretty good sized lot.
You gotta take into account streets, and sidewalks, and
Okay, well, yeah. If it were just a house, then that would be
Yeah.
overkill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Lexi, did you have something?
I was just gonna make a comment if I may.
Sure.
The remonstrators did a good job organizing and summarizing information from a couple thousand different residents and to give us a more concise idea of the issues that are at play here. And I'd also like to say, on the other hand, this is sort of a balancing act up here. The petitioner did a good job addressing some of those concerns, including the ones I had, which were increased traffic. I feel like those have been addressed 2 ways. The traffic concern has been addressed by alleviating the density down from 5 to something a little over 3. And by the access point at Smith Valley Road, if that comes to fruition, I think that'll help at least the Main Street side of things a lot. And I say that as a Smith Valley Road resident, funneling some of this out to Smith Valley, I think is a good idea. And then the other issue I had was about the schools, and I appreciate Mr. Prime reminding me that Center Grove does plan on building a new elementary school, and I've already purchased the land for that. And those were 2 of my concerns going into this. And I'm leaning toward a favorable recommendation at this point.
Any
To
other?
clarify, a favorable recommendation only changes the zoning.
What we're,
Well, we're recommending.
the motion I will be asking.
Recommending to the council a change in zoning. None of this is set in stone at all.
Absolutely not.
And that will come later at other.
Council's public.
Yeah.
If it is zoned, it will come back before this body for a primary plat and a secondary platting process, so then all those details will be determined.
And there are some recommendations and proposed conditions. There are 8 of them that
All
Mr.
Proposed commitments that are recommended by the staff.
Mr. Nelson and his staff have recommended still.
Can we go over them?
Anybody, well, yeah, we can go over them. I'll read them out for everybody to be able to hear. The first one is that a traffic impact study shall be required. The second one is direct access from Smith Valley Road shall be evaluated as part of the traffic impact study. This shall be coordinated with the city engineer. Number 3, the development shall be in compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance as amended. Compliance with this condition must be met before a land alteration permit is released. Number 4, the use of vinyl siding shall be prohibited. Number 5, any infrastructure improvements will be performed in accordance with the Technical Review Committee. Number 6, trails shall be designed and built in accordance with the Greenwood future land use map, including internal trail connections to common areas. Number 7, developers shall collaborate with staff to attempt to connect pedestrian facilities, sidewalks, and trails to the Yorktown Smith Valley Roundabout and the south side of Main Street and Yorktown Roundabout. Collaboration and communication with the Greenwood Christian Academy High School should be attempted by the developer to provide safe pedestrian routes to school. Those are the 8 commitments recommended by staff.
Yes, and I do just want to clarify, those are recommended as commitments. The staff report does say conditions, but they are commitments that we are recommending.
Any other questions or comments? If not,
I would,
Ms. Kuhn has some statutory criteria.
I would remind you, and Mr. Prime did touch on this, in making your recommendation to the common council, you are to pay reasonable regard to the following items. 1, the comprehensive plan. 2, the current conditions and the character of the current structures and uses in each district. 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. 4, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction of Greenwood. And 5, responsible development and growth.
Okay, hearing this, I would accept a motion. Motion may be a favorable motion, an unfavorable motion, or a motion to make no recommendations.
Mr. President, I move that the amended petition for a zone map change to rezone approximately 113.5 acres of land located on the south side of West Main Street on either side of Greenwood Christian Academy High School and on the north side of West Main Street directly opposite the Community Church of Greenwood within the city of Greenwood, Johnson County, Indiana, from AG Agricultural District to RA Residential Attached Single Family Zone and RL Residential Large Zone as set forth therein, receive a favorable recommendation from this commission to the Greenwood Common Council, and that the same be certified to the Greenwood Common Council in the form presented with the following commitments. Those 8 commitments set forth in the staff report.
Second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Lexi and a second by Mr. Probst. Are there any comments or questions before we go to a vote?
Is there any way we can add a 9th commitment?
You can propose one to the gentleman that made the motion if he accepts it.
You can amend his motion and see if the second is amended.
I just think that a school-based study, capacity study also needs to be a commitment. If we didn't see that on the list. Other than traffic.
Do you know what a school-based study?
Yeah, just studying the capacity of the schools at which the children would be going. Yes, 355 units. I'm talking all the schools that the children would be going to, including high school. Middle school.
You're recommending requiring a school-based capacity study
As a
for
commitment.
all of the school districts and private schools in the area.
Well, maybe just specifically Center Grove and the Greenwood Christian Academy, because they're right there. I don't know.
Pleasing for Greenwood. Would it be easier to obtain approval from those schools rather than doing it straight up? Study of school capacity.
I don't think it's about being easy. I think about what the results would show.
I would prefer just to recommend, not include it as a commitment, but recommend it to Mr. Prime that between now and the city council meeting, he gets something in writing from as many schools as he can saying that their capacity would not be threatened by this project. Is that fair?
The teacher ratio. Info.
Capacity.
So
Could
is it okay to
include-
just do it between now? I'm not going to amend my motion. Mr. Prime said he'll work on getting that for for the city council.
for this presentation to council.
Yeah,
Fair enough. Okay. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question, and all those in favor of this motion, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. We have a 6-2. So the motion carries. I'd like to thank the residents who have been present in this, and also recommend that they stay with this because there is a lot of work that has to be done. Mr. Prime will attest to this. There's a lot of work that has to be done to get to the point where a land alteration permit is issued. Thank you for your input. We'll take just a few moments for anybody who's planning on leaving. Go ahead and kick off, and then we'll carry on.
I know.
Please move out into the hall so we can continue the meeting. Thank you. Can we please, anybody who's not staying in the meeting, can you please move out into the hallway? Thank you. Is there any old business from the floor? Seeing none, move on to new business. PC 2023-025, Anderson Hauser Landscape Waivers. This is not a public hearing, it's a landscape waiver. We'll take just a moment as our presenter is setting up. Okay, are you ready? Please proceed.
Yeah, hi, my name is Pat Stout. I'm with Rendell Hertzberger Associates. We're a landscape architecture planning firm in Indianapolis, representing Enders Hauser for landscape waiver requests. Just to give you a general outline of the four, the two parts of code, but the four areas on this plan that we're requesting a waiver on. Two are buffer related, specifically on the west and the southwest corners. We have a 40-foot buffer requirement, a large requirement for code. In general, the planting for this portion of campus for Enders Hauser, specifically on the perimeter, is a native prairie. Not only to reduce maintenance for Enders Hauser, but I think more importantly for Enders Hauser, along their ideals of a more environmental, sustainable, and appreciation for wildlife as part of that. So taking that into consideration, a lot of that plant typology needs more sunlight than kind of more specific ornamental plantings. And as such, we're asking for a waiver to relocate plants. On the west side, you can see in the purple color applies to the west buffer, and then the yellow colored plants are relocated towards the southwest buffer itself. So what we tried to do was accommodate part of that buffer without choking out a lot of the prairie that would be in the understory of those trees. But then meeting the full requirement from the buffer plus the relocated trees elsewhere that are color coded. The third one would be the south parking lot. So there is, I don't know if I can point this, but just about in the middle, there's kind of a dark red color. There's a little parking on the southeast corner of the building footprint. We're asking for a waiver request with perimeter parking for that, partly due in part to the north side having that native prairie, again, consistent with what we're doing in the buffer area. And then on the south end, we do have geothermal wells located there. So trying to avoid getting into any of the tubing required for the geothermal, specifically with the tree roots themselves. And then lastly would be also for the perimeter parking requirement, but for the drive aisle, so that swooping road coming from the north from Wurtsville Road and connecting down into the existing campus. Again, keeping in the spirit of this whole plant typology that we have going on, that we didn't find that it was appropriate in the aesthetic that we have to do a traditional tree line with shrubs along the perimeter of the drive aisle. So what we did was concentrated all of our plantings within a woodland area, similar to what they have already on campus. You can see outlined in red. Those are the areas that we are proposing and addressing our quantities in those three areas. So in the median buffer as you first enter campus, and then two woodland areas just south of that, just west of the drive.
Another question for you. Mr. Stout, I know that you in particular and Rendell Hertzberger in general did the city center park. Are the grasses areas similar to what is found on the west side of City Center Park?
Yeah, Old City Park.
I'm sorry,
Old City Park.
Old City
It
Park.
would be similar, yeah. We don't have the exact same sequence, but it's similar, yeah. It's similar and it's.
To someone who's not a
naturalized
landscape architect, they might step back and say, oh, this is similar. I've seen this elsewhere in the city.
Correct, yeah, correct.
Thank you. Gives me a view of what you're talking about. Any other? Yes.
If I may, just from staff, we are favorable of all of the petitioner's requests. Our staff report condenses it into just the buffering and the perimeter parking lot landscaping. They're maintaining the quantity that we would like and relocating these in places that are more appropriate. They're also really going above and beyond any of our ordinance requirements. They're far exceeding what our ordinance has to try to make a natural prairie area, which we typically do not get with these developments. So it is exciting to see something like that happening in Greenwood. And with that, we're favorable of both requests.
Maybe we'll see more of it beyond Old City Park.
And there have been three, this was divided out the way it was filed. There are three separate motions for what has been requested.
We have an order, we're gonna handle these in.
I think it started out with the 40-foot buffer area, the buffer plantings, and then I think the parking lot perimeter, and then the drive aisle.
That was the order they were presented
I
in. at
think
least.
that's-
Okay,
yeah.
Let's take them in that order.
I don't wanna cut anyone off, if they don't have anything. Mr. President, I move that the request of Enders Hauser Inc. for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulation, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, buffering that specifies a minimum 40-foot large size buffer yard where differing districts and zones abut with 5 canopy/evergreen trees, 4 ornamental trees, and 20 shrubs every 100 feet, to reduce the required number of plantings to a total of 17 shade trees and 11 ornamental trees in the 496-foot buffer along the west-southwest boundary where the subject IL property abuts CM and CL property, and allow the remainder of the required plants to be relocated elsewhere on the site to lessen the shade impact on the native prairie landscape plants, to reduce unsustainable maintenance practices and to promote a more diverse habitat of plants and wildlife, be approved, and that the Planning Commission find that Enders Hauser Inc. has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the waiver, for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Milburn. Any other last questions or comments before we go? If not, all those in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. We have a second motion.
This is for the parking lot perimeter plantings. Mr. President, I move that the request of Enders Hauser Inc. for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulation, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, J, parking lot landscaping, 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping, A, that specifies a minimum 5-foot wide landscaped area with a minimum of 1 tree and 3 shrubs every 35 feet at the perimeter of a parking lot, to permit relocation of the required plants from the perimeter of the project parking lot located southeast of the building to other areas on site due to conflict with the geothermal field located south of the parking lot, and to lessen the shade impact on the native prairie plants on the north side of the parking lot be approved, and that the Planning Commission find that Enders Hauser Inc. has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the waiver, for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Stambaugh. Any other questions or comments before we proceed? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. There is a third motion.
For the perimeter parking lot drive aisle plantings, I move that the request of Enders Hauser Inc. for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable of regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, J, parking lot landscaping, 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping, E, that specifies a minimum 5-foot wide landscaped area with 1 tree and 3 shrubs every 35 feet to the perimeter of a parking lot drive aisle, to allow the required plants to be relocated to a woodland area elsewhere on site, because the 50-foot enterprise easement along the drive conflicts with the tree and shrub consistency, and a 5-foot grass mow strip from the back of the curb to the prairie woodland landscape separates the buffer plants from encroaching into the road to be approved, and that the Planning Commission find that Enders Hauser Inc. has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
Motion by Mr. King. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gardner. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Stout, good luck.
Thanks.
Second item of new business is PC 2023-073, a zone map change. This is a public hearing. Once again, we will follow the same criteria we did earlier, and that there's going to be 15 minutes to the petitioner, followed by 15 minutes to remonstrators. And then we'll allow 5 minutes to the petitioner for rebuttal and 5 minutes following that to the remonstrators. The person is appearing in opposition for closing remarks.
Mr. President, before we start, may I pass out a handout
Yes,
to the members? Thank you.
we'll enter those into the record.
No, please.
Anybody that's going to speak either in favor or opposed to this, please stand at this time and we'll swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalties for perjury the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. Please. Oh, there's one online. Okay, could you please give your name and address?
Charlotte Gridley, 1689 Demery Road.
Okay, we're going to start off with Mr. Tui.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, members of, Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Brian Tui. My address is 50 South Meridian. And here from Columbus, Ohio is the favor of Homestead Development. Homestead Development is an Ohio-based company that develops multifamily communities in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. And they currently have about $200 million worth of higher-end multifamily developments under construction, and they currently manage about 10,000 units. I'm only letting you know that just to give you an idea that this is a sizable organization. We're respectfully requesting a rezoning of about 11.5 acres from residential large to residential multi-unit complex. I think it's shorthand as RMC. That would allow for 192 Class A apartments on the east side of State Road 135, south of Denbury Road, and just north of the Independent Senior Living development on the east side of 135. The site is owned by David Derringer and Greg Allen and Charles Wilson. Thank you for taking your time and hearing our case this evening. So here's the site, members of the Planning Commission. It's kind of a little unusual site in the sense that it's pretty long. It's about 1,300 feet long. And the way I think about things like that, that's about a little longer than a 4 football field. Football fields are about 300 feet long, 100 yards. So this is about 1,300 feet long, but it's only about 400 feet wide. And it's, as I said, it's on the east side of 135. And you can see that surrounding it on the west side, so that'd be on the left side of that aerial map, that's 135, and then there's that residential neighborhood, and there's Dyes Walk Country Club. And on the south side, so that would be below that area lined in yellow, that's the Independent Senior Living Facility, which is 3 stories tall. Right next to it, where it says 4-story senior living, that's the senior living development that's under construction now. And then further to the east are Copper Chase Apartments. To the north of us, so that's on top of the site, that's the single family residences that are along Demery Road. So in summary, you've got State Highway on the west side, guys walk over to the west. You've got single family residences on our north side, then Demery Road. And to the east, you have Copper Chase Apartments, and then two different senior living facilities. One of them is 3 stories tall and 4 stories tall. And then you might remember just going south on Hartgrove Drive, you run into the water tower there, and then the Emmanuel Church. So the way to summarize is the site sits between Demery Road and Road Crossing Boulevard. The next slide just shows a photograph of the site. So that's standing on State Road 135, looking east towards the Copper Chase Apartments and the senior living facility. I think this slide shows you a little better. This is just south of us. So our south border, that's the Independence Village 3-story senior living residences. And then just to in the background, that's the 4-story senior residences that are being constructed right now. Those trees on the left side of that photograph, that's our north or our southern border. So what's the site zone? It's zoned RL, and our proposal is RMC. And around it, I think that's one thing to look at is in concerning zone is what's around it. Well, right north of us is RL. Right east of us is RMC, the same kind of zone that we're seeking. That's in that what you call khaki colored outline site. And it's kind of interesting that RMC site, that RMC zoning apparently runs all the way to Demery Road. Then south of us is CM, commercial medium, and then commercial special. Over to the left of that exhibit, that's State Road 135, and then you get into, I think, county zoning, which I think is R1 and R4. So around the site, you kind of have a smattering of different zonings. You've got RL, you've got RMC, you've got CM, and you've got CS. What do we propose to build? Homestead would propose to build 192 acres and 192 units on the 11.5 acres. And they had an earlier site plan that had the buildings closer to the north line. But after looking at what the site gave them, looking at there's a creek or a ditch that runs along their northern boundary line, mostly on their neighbor's property. There's a pretty good stand of trees along that ditch. And they redesigned the site so that there's more open areas along the north border, which is up near where our single family residences are. And those buildings, as you can see, are set back from that border. And then their detention area, which of course they'll be required to build so that they don't create drainage havoc either to our surrounding neighbors. They put that on the sort of the north west side of the site. And then they've got a small dog park in the area for residents that might have pets, but they kept the parking into the internal areas of the site, primarily to keep cars and traffic and noise from the perimeters. So that's their preliminary site plan. And as I said, the buildings would be 3 stories tall. The buildings would be made of hardy plank and stone and masonry. There would also be a clubhouse. That clubhouse is out to the left and a resort type pool. That clubhouse would be between 3,500 and 4,000 square feet. It would have amenities in it like a fitness room, a place where you could, a gathering space, a meeting room, a place where you could work remotely because a lot of people are doing that now. It would have a leasing office. It would have outdoor grilling areas. So it'd be a very high-end, sizable clubhouse for a community of this size. The mix of units, I think, is important to explain to the Planning Commission. Most of there's only 1 bedrooms and 2 bedroom apartments. There's about 122 bedrooms and 72 1-bedrooms. These apartments are sizable. They're about 722 square feet for a 1-bedroom and about 1,050 square feet for a 2-bedroom. They're also rather expensive. They expect the rent will be at $1,300 to $1,400 a month for the 1-bedrooms and $2,000 or over $2,000 a month for the 2-bedrooms. They expect they have enough parking, they believe, for this number of units. They have 345 total parking spaces, which equates to about 1.1 space per bedroom, not per unit, but over one space per bedroom, using that mix. And there's 32 garages available for people that want to store their cars in garages. The kind of people they expect to live in this community will be young professionals, obviously well employed because of those rents, or the bucket I guess I fit into, an active adult. That is folks that want to have a nice place to live, but they don't want to take care of any charge on maintenance. They may want to lock it up in the winter and go someplace warmer. That's those two kinds of folks, young professionals, active adults, are who they are targeting this development to. I heard a lot of conversation in the last meeting about schools, and that's obviously an important consideration. Their experience is that almost no one in a one-bedroom would have a child, and certainly could. But their experience from their 10,000 units is that doesn't happen very often. Their experience in a community this size with 2 bedrooms is they would expect 5 or 6 children at the maximum. That's the number of kids they expect that might live in this community. Could there be more? Yes, but there also could be less. So what would it look like? That's a clubhouse, a similar kind of design. These are similar kinds of designs. You see there's masonry up on the first 2 floors, hardy plank across the tops. Not there's anything wrong with vinyl, but they would not have any vinyl siding. These apartments would have stainless steel appliances. They would have engineered wood type floors. They would have high-end cabinetry and countertops. And then the clubhouse, as I mentioned, things like billiard tables, meeting space, cooking space, grilling areas, sizable clubhouse for events for the residents. This is an expensive development. They expect that they would spend about $40 million on this site. And so you would be taking a 11-acre site. I guess you could consider it agricultural. Now there's a small house on it. I think there's a small barn. You would be taking that, which generates very little or no taxes to the community, and changing it into a site that would have an assessed value somewhere in that $40 million range. And of course then result in a significant increase to the tax base of Greenwood. The units would have tall ceilings in them, 9 to 10 feet tall. I mentioned the rents. The buildings would be 31 feet tall at the eave, with then a pitched roof on top of it. And so the total is about 3 stories, 40 feet or slightly under would be the height of those buildings. As you can see, they've got some outdoor balconies. This slide shows you the stone and the shake siding, the dimensional shingle roofs and shutters, and hardy plank siding that they would propose to use. In analyzing the consideration, the staff consideration of this rezoning, and by the way, we appreciate it very much working with Gabe and Kevin. I think we've been talking to them about this for about 15 months. Gabe pointed out that the comprehensive plan shows that this is zoned for residential. You did mention to me that it was about 10 years old. And since that time, it seems to me that that area along 135 has changed considerably, because you've now got Copper Chase Apartments, you've got the Independence senior living there, and you've got the new one that's under construction. And frankly, I just don't think that it's very likely on an 11-acre site on a 4-lane highway next to those uses that are in there, except for the residents to the north. I just don't think you're likely to see single family homes in there. And I think the staff generally agreed with our contention that our multifamily residential uses directly adjacent to 135 are compatible with nearby multifamily uses and commercial uses. The second element was whether or not the request complied with the current conditions and character of the current structures and uses. And we suggested the proposed rezoning and multifamily residential uses are consistent and compatible with nearby uses. The staff agreed with that statement and further went on to say the use of these parcels for any type of residential would fit the character of the area. The third element was whether the request is the most desirable use for the land. We suggested that this residential development would provide an appropriate transition from the commercially zoned land to the south and the multifamily zoned land to the south to the residentially zoned land to the north, which is separated from that residentially zoned land by the creek and wooded area. Staff agreed with that statement. You have to consider whether it would negatively affect the property values. We respectfully suggested the multifamily community would increase the city's tax base and is compatible with the nearby multifamily and senior living uses. Staff agreed with that statement. And then lastly, whether this is considered responsible development growth. We suggested that it would allow for multifamily development on a mostly agricultural site, and that proposed development is compatible with nearby uses, and that we would take reasonable steps to preserve trees and install landscape buffers between the site and adjoining properties. And I would go back to this slide. If you look at this site plan, you can see they've been careful along the northern border. You can see that squiggly lines, that's the creek and the trees that are along that northern border. They won't be in those, and they'll take steps to preserve those trees, again, to create that buffer. You can also see from that photograph, that's a super imposition of the site plan over an aerial photograph. You can see there's a terrific stand of trees running left to right, east to west, that are on our neighbors' properties, and of course we won't be into those or touch those. So the staff has respectfully suggested 4 commitments, and Mr. Failer and his team agree with all those. I just wanted to clear up that our access easement that we would agree to as a condition, that would be on our property. Staff agreed with me on that. We can't put an access easement across the way, but this would allow, I think it's called Commerce Grove Drive, tees in on the south side of our property. It would allow that we would create an easement, access easement across our property if traffic wanted to come north in and out of Commerce Grove Drive across our property. They asked us to agree that we would produce a traffic impact study. We've already reached out to ANT Engineering. We're ready to engage them to do a traffic impact study. And that the development would be in compliance with the United Development Ordinance. We agree with that. And that we'd have to comply with that before we moved any dirt. And then any infrastructure improvements would be performed in accordance with the technical review committee, and we agree with that. There was 2 additional commitments. I met with Councilman David Hopper. He asked us if we would provide, I believe it's called a flock security camera installed on the site. What I understand that does is that it's a license plate reader. So if you have a security issue, you can see who's on your site by reading the license plate. Petitioners agreed to do that. And then lastly, Councilman Hopper asked if the developer would consider providing 1 apartment at a 50% rental rate to allow for a member of the Greenwood Police. I believe he said fire department, but my notes just said the police officer to reside in the community at a reduced rate. We've agreed with that also at the suggestion of Councilman Hopper. So in summary, we would respectfully suggest that this multi-use high-end community on kind of an infill site, and everything else right around is developed. We would suggest that's compatible with what's around it, especially the senior living, the Copper Chase. And remember, right next door to our east, to our southeast, it's zoned the same classification we're seeking. We think that luxury apartments right near a high-end golf course, I think that's a pretty attractive use for a small site. It will allow development of a almost vacant site. There's a house and barn on there now, which will drastically increase the city's tax base. Our improvements would include the use of high-quality exterior materials and architecturally desirable buildings. We had a neighborhood meeting in August, and I'll wrap this up. We invited 60 neighbors to the library over here. We had a good meeting. 8 to 10 people showed up. And then we mailed 60 notices on January 4th for this meeting. We agreed to the requested commitments, and planning staff has made a favorable recommendation. We appreciate your favorable consideration also. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Remonstrators. You're invited to come forward if you would please. I know both of you were sworn in. If you could please state your name and address.
Yes, sir. Nathan Knies, 1744 Pathway Drive North, in the Ashland condominium, just north of this property. Certainly, I'd like to thank the commission's opportunity. As the other resident mentioned, there are significant concerns from the Ashland community just north of Demery Road. Over the course of time in development, which is natural in the course of the history of the city, there has been significant flooding and back pressure into our community, into our pond, and then upwards northeast towards the property farm. We have spent a substantial amount of money in the Ashland community at our residents' expense to put in a seawall to try to contain the flood from our retention pond into our residents. Over the past year and a half with the significant rains, the flooding has increased in that the east pond, as well as there is back pressure and back flow issues along that Auburn trace that the gentleman mentioned. There is oftentimes debris in that trace, and our concern as a neighborhood is that with a good water study to understand that flow of water, the further impact and further water to our community that could cause substantial damage to our properties and require our residents to have to spend additional money to maintain the quality and value of our homes in the Ashland community. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Jackie Haynes at 2080 Woodsway Drive, Greenwood 46143. I'm here on behalf of Dice Walk Members Inc. I'm the board president. Here with me is Kyle Bauman, our general manager. And similar to the Ashland concern, we welcome 192 new golf members into our golf course community. But we too have concerns about drainage, and just want to go on record that is we want to make sure that, we know that during TAC and all of your further reviews, if it's approved, that in plan commission, this will go forward to be studied correctly. But Dice Walk incurred about $500,000 of mitigation to their backs 9 when State Road 135 was widened. The watershed that was created from the development that occurred to the east of us and flowed through to theirs, and what they're not capturing came on into ours. And so it does continue to be a concern. We don't have a way to take on more watershed without doing damage to our course. So we would just like to make that on the record again, and appreciate the nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. There's someone who is online, I believe, who was wishing to speak.
Yes, am I there?
It is time. If you could please give us your name and address to begin with.
Okay, my name is Charlotte Gridley. I live at 1689 Demery Road. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. To be consistent with the other two speakers, I'm also concerned about the drainage. My property is north of this 11 acres. And as new developments have come on board, it's like Ashwood said, they're having problems with their drainage and overflow. Well, I'm upstream. I have, when we first moved it to our property, that creek behind us in the summertime, not during droughts, but in the summertime, it would just have little puddles of water. Now it is a constant flowing creek with several inches of water. It has flooded. It has eroded tremendously. I am losing trees. We have paid privately to have trees removed because, to keep the stream from being dammed up. Some of them fall into that. It is undercutting the ground. It is not safe back there. Trees, drainage from the field itself has caused erosion on the north side of the property, which would be, south of us, south of the creek, where their trees have fallen over across into our property. So, drainage is a big thing because people might be compliant to what is necessary for that piece of property, but they don't always seem to consider how it affects downstream and other properties. So I would hope that they would, take this into consideration also, like everybody else is saying. But also moving on is the zoning factor. I don't know if there is, I'm not good on what district is what little zones, but I know he said that it is compatible with the apartments to the east, that they're 3-story apartments. It would be compatible if this was rezoned, that is. It would be compatible with the senior living on the south of it, because those are 4 stories. It's not compatible with what's north of it because we are single family residents. Now, with that being said, yes, there is a creek. Yes, there are trees, but the trees are not as thick as it appears to be. Where my property is, I can see the apartments. I can see those bright lights that are on those buildings that will blind you when you go outside. And I have a field and trees between us. Before all the buildings, the senior living was, I could see, look out my house, my backyard, and I could see a half mile to Emmanuel Church. I can't do that now because of the buildings. I hear the noise, the music, and all the lights. And if I don't know if there's some way to, if this was rezoned, if there's a restriction to where the buildings on the north side of the property that would be adjacent to the, next to the creek and to the single families, if that would be limited instead of 3 stories to 2, because right now I see everything. There's no evergreens. And that way they could kind of build buffers and put some fast growing evergreens to help, to make a compromise with the existing residents that have been there long term. That way it would create more of a noise control along with our privacy. So we're not in our backyard with everybody, sitting out on our patios with everybody looking in at us. There's also looking at the diagram that he had shown that shows, where you've got the green space and where you've got now the surfaces, the buildings and the pavement. I mean, that ratio between green and the impervious surfaces, have really changed. You've got a lot, being a creek, you've got a lot of wildlife. I see deer in the field all the time. There's coyote, there's fox. Now, granted, some of it I'm not always, excited to see, but others, with that much density of pavement and green space gone, then that's going to create problems with additional, the wildlife. What are they going to do? Also, by having like a 3-story apartments, yes, it's going to create a larger tax basis for the city of Greenwood, but it's also going to decrease, there's no way that it can improve the value of my house because, who's going to want to buy my house with the 3-story apartment in my backyard? And so, those are just some things that, I hope that this board will consider. And, whether or not they propose, what they recommend. And then I don't know if this is where this would be taken up in future meetings. I'm not sure how all of this, transpires as to, try to get more compromises between the developer and the existing property owners that, we moved there for a reason. And our reason is slowly disappearing. We wanted to be away from all the crowdedness, all the way from the traffic. And I know there's progress, but, I just wish that they would consider having a compromise. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Gridley. Anybody else to speak in as a remonstrator?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm on Zoom.
you'll have to give your name and address and you'll have to be sworn in.
Sure. My name is Mark Buck, 2282 Wedgeway Court, Greenwood, 46143.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalties for perjury the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Please proceed, Mr. Bach.
I'll just cover some quick points because most of it's been done, but I think the density, we're just doing this, I guess, for zoning purposes at this point. But the density is way too high at 16.59. That just seems like it's way too much. The things that they showed, it's all hard surface. There's hardly any green space in the development itself. It's all rooftops and concrete. There is a drainage issue. I think that's got to be addressed before it would be changed. I have an issue with the schools. I'm not sure how the taxing would work on that because it seems like it's in the Greenwood city limits. But if there is kids, they'd be going to Center Grove schools. So I'm not sure that's a good thing or not. Let's see. The traffic is going to be a huge problem. I live basically just to the west, and I would be coming out of my addition right where they come out of theirs pretty much. 345 spaces, that's a lot of cars. The traffic's already terrible right there because there's really no good east-west streets between Smith Valley and Stones Crossing to alleviate all the traffic. All those streets that go east-west dead end, Demery dead ends, Curry Road dead ends into Honey Creek, which is not a very big road. And there's a ton of traffic there already. We don't need any more traffic in that area. And the 3 stories bothers me also. And the other thing is they keep saying it's compatible. And like the lady before me, it may be compatible, but it's just getting too dense in that area. There's probably 10 apartment complexes now within a quarter to half a mile of that area. And it's just getting too dense right there. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. Anybody else? We've still got about 5 minutes for remonstrators. Seeing none, we'll move on to 5-minute for the petitioner to bring forth any rebuttal.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. Could I bring that PowerPoint back up, please? Thank you. I would like to move the slides back. Oh, thank you. And will these keys move them back?
It should.
Ah, great. Thank you. I'm sure it was my fault, not yours. So I think you could sum up the 3 or 4 comments we just heard as drainage, traffic, and the view of our neighbors. And I had a nice conversation with the woman who called in this afternoon. And the drainage issue, it's very important. If Dice Walk's at $500,000 on their golf course, that's going to be critical to them. We understand that before we turn the first shovel of dirt, we'd have to have Mark St. John and his engineering team approve our engineer's proposed drainage solution. We've hired Kimley Horn, who's a well-known national engineer, but has a big office in the Indianapolis area. And they think they can drain the site. And in a lot of cases, as the Planning Commission's aware, when you get a site developed, it actually improves the drainage around this area. This site's blessed with this creek across the Great Ditch, whatever you want to call it, across the north end. we've got plenty of room on our north end to put in a stormwater basin. It has to be bigger, it has to be deeper. We have to engineer the drainage so that we're not affecting our neighbors. That'll happen. As to the traffic, we're going to do a traffic study. But my comment on that would be, it's on a 4-lane state highway. It's going to get developed as something. I don't think it's going to get developed as a single family house. That would have happened. I don't think it's going to get developed as a few single family houses because of what's right around it. We've got 3 stories of the Independence to our south, 4 stories to our southeast, and the other development to the east, Copper Chase. As to our neighbor, that's why I pulled up this slide. Maybe what we could do is where she is, members of the Planning Commission, her home, if you look at the top of the exhibit, there's 2 buildings side by side at the top. That's at the northeast end of the exhibit. Her home, her lot, if I can point it on a screen, her lot is right there. So she's between those 2 buildings. Maybe what we would suggest is as a compromise, she asked about that, maybe we would suggest that we would drop those 2 buildings to 2 stories so that there wouldn't be 3 stories next to her. And then that would of course drop the number of units by 16. But then across our northern boundary here, the only place you have 3 stories would be here and here, a long way from her and separated by that stream and that pretty heavy wooded area. We would offer that as an additional condition to drop our 2 northeast buildings as shown on that slide 6 to 2 stories from 3 stories. And then lastly, the traffic. We'll do a traffic study, and obviously if it turns out that the road can't handle that, then by the time we come to see you for planning and the council reviews this, everybody's gonna know that. That probably means we're not gonna get approved. But I think that this site has got good access on 135. It's got a road that stubs it into the south. And so we think we can sort out the traffic and our zoning is subject to a traffic study being produced and analyzed by the planning department. So I guess I finished my presentation by suggesting we're willing to add an additional commitment that I just outlined in that the 2 northeastern buildings would be 2 stories rather than 3 stories in an effort to address our neighboring property owners' concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tui. So now we move to demonstrators for closing remarks.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for the commitment for our lower price housing for police officer. We really appreciate that for our community and the interest in compromising on this area. Just want to stress that the Auburn Trace area is an area of flood and of water and of concern, and ask that the city seriously consider all the affected communities, not the ones just immediately tangential, but in the near area. Appreciate also looking at this graphic in additional consideration. Appreciate going from 3 to 2 stories. The one that's on 135, we have several Ashland neighbors that actually similarly would be looking straight into that property as well, and would recommend or ask that they consider moving that to 2 stories. Thank you.
Any other demonstrators? Seeing none.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, online.
Yes.
Unclosed. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Mark again. I'd just like to add, due to these issues that we talked about, I'd ask the board to reject the request to change the zoning, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bott. Anybody else online or in the room? Yes, ma'am. You'll have to come forward and be sworn in.
Please raise raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalties for perjury the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? Yes, I do.
My name's Patty Gary. My address is 2305 Wedgeway Court, Greenwood. I agree with everything that has been said. The traffic is a very, very large issue. Trying to get out of El Dorado subdivision, sometimes you'll have to sit there for 2 or 3 minutes. And having more traffic, there are accidents along there because they say it's a 4-lane highway, but people trying to get in, they get into that middle lane, and people going the other direction, getting in that middle lane, and then you just have problems. The senior living area, the traffic from that is not bad because there are not very many people coming in and out, but that's totally different than having apartments. And everybody keeps talking about it's compatible with the surroundings, but the only reason it's compatible with the surroundings is because they allowed one apartment building to be built, and then the next thing you say, well, it's compatible with that, so you put another one, and then they look and it's compatible with that, and you put another one. So our area is just being taken over by multi-family building, and it's going to keep going unless we stop it somewhere. And the 3-story, if they would make the whole thing 2-story, it might be better because I'm going to have people looking down at my house also. And 2 stories might be better, but the people are going to just keep selling because they don't want to live there. And there are a lot of nice houses that people have invested in that will no longer be worth what they're worth. And I don't think that Greenwood really wants, we want our neighborhood, we want our city to grow, but not grow in a way that is detrimental to the community. We keep talking about we want it to be a superior, but then we're taking areas that we could make into really nice areas, and we're putting things that really should not be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other demonstrators for closing comments? Yes, sir. Come forward. Hey, don't believe you've been sworn in or,
Oh, I got you last time.
okay.
Hi, my name's Scott Setzer. I live over 1311 Wenlock Drive. I just moved into a condo over there, but I am an ex-firefighter from White Township as well. My biggest concern is you gotta make it not better access for more fire trucks. And not only that, I don't think White River's got the capabilities right now of being able to handle all that. They're gonna have to have mutual aid in Greenwood. More importantly, what about our officers? Greenwood don't have enough officers. I mean, I agree with these guys. They want to develop a property that's probably never going to get developed otherwise. And that's fine with me. But do our officers capable of handling this? That's the biggest concern. That's the biggest concern I would have over at Walker's. We are short now. If we're short now and we keep developing like this, because this is going to bring crime. It's been proven. Look at all the other areas in the city of Indianapolis. And I'm a bus driver in Indianapolis. I'm a bus driver for Craig Township, and I'm running for Whiteland School Board because I want things done over there. So that's a big concern too, is do we have enough officers to cover their area that they want to build? I think that answer is very hard to find. It's a no. It's a flat out no. They need to have enough officers to go to the very mall. We have 2 shootings. Let's consider everything. Everything. I mean, yes, I give these guys kudos. They looks like they're gonna build a very nice community right there. Those are 2 big concerns right there. Is, you know, you had 1 officer or so in there. Man, 1 officer living there, get at least 3 or 4. So I really ask that the board really look at this definitely. Because emergency services is what's going to be handled here. And I know Johnson County Sheriff's Department don't have to do. So that's why I asked the board to really consider everything. Not just money, not just our tax dollars going to bring. Consider it all. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, that ends the 5 minutes for rebuttal. We'll close the public hearing. Comments or questions from the commission?
I have a question for Gabe. Does the Unified Development Ordinance or land alteration permitting, does that, any of that, educate me here, does that cover drainage at all?
Yes, so I wanted to bring this up because it seems to be one of the bigger concerns for this development and for a lot of our developments in Greenwood. Again, this is the zone map change. At this time, we have not seen engineered plans for drainage. All development within the city limit is required to meet our water quantity and our water quality standards. This is detailed in our stormwater technical manual. By law, they cannot discharge more water off their site than they are currently discharging right now. Along with that, I would say the rate at which the water is going to be discharged is going to meet our Greenwood stormwater technical standards. It'll likely be a slower rate as leaving and be better for all the surrounding developments around this area. Right now, it's just land and it sheet flows and goes into the river, goes into adjacent subdivisions. But with our standards, it should really improve the area. And I know, not to put anyone on the spot, but Mark St. John is up here too if there's other drainage concerns that I didn't cover.
I'm assuming they'll have to follow best management practice structures and so forth that help on improving water quality, stormwater quality.
That's correct, yes. Is this the right hearing to talk about landscape buffers between this proposed, or is that a different meeting, or is that your responsibility?
I can definitely answer. I was going to bring this up because we did have some concerns to just explain our unified development standards, which staff will look at when they propose their development plan. This comes after the zoning, but with that to the north, we would require a 20-foot buffer yard. That buffer yard would include now I'll mess up the number of feet, 3 canopy trees, 4 evergreen trees every. Let me check something. Per 100 feet, it would require 2 ornamental trees in addition to that every 100 feet, and it would require 10 shrubs in addition to that every 100 feet. Thank you, Kevin, for having that handy. So that buffer yard, every 100 feet, you're going to have 3 large trees, 2 small trees, and 10 shrubs. That is a requirement that we have that they will need to meet. If they were to try to propose a waiver, the petition before you, Henderson Hauser, they had a waiver for their landscaping where they came before them and were seeking approval. With different land uses like this, we would not be recommending favorable support to reduce that landscaping. But that's just a little bit about how our process works. So there is already set up some buffering between the north properties.
And the petitioner could add more if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yes, they're not prohibited or capped from adding more. And there's definitely existing trees that can either count towards their total or that we would encourage them to preserve.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, we have some criteria.
Just as in the last petition, please remember to pay reasonable regard to the following criteria when you are making your recommendation on this petition to the common council. 1, the comprehensive plan. 2, the current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in each district. 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. 4, the conservation of property values throughout Greenwood. And 5, responsible development and growth.
Mr. President, I move that the petition for a zone map change to rezone approximately 11.5 acres of land located on the east side of State Road 135, approximately 600 feet south of Demery Road within the city of Greenwood, Johnson County, Indiana, from RL residential lot, large lot zone to RMC residential multi-unit complex zone as set forth therein. Receive a favorable recommendation from this commission to the Greenwood Common Council, and the same be certified to the Greenwood Common Council in the form presented with the commitments listed in the staff report 1 through 4, and then to add the proposed commitment from Mr. Tui to lower the 2 northeast buildings from 3 stories to 2 stories.
And what about the flop camera and the police officer? Did you want to add?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I missed that. So to add. Yeah, that the petitioner shall provide a flock security camera to be installed on the site. And that the petitioner shall provide 1 apartment unit at a 50% rental rate for a Greenwood police officer. Thank you, Sean. I missed that in my notes. So I did not lose that.
And I. We have a
Second.
motion by Mr. King, second by Ms. Gardner. Any last questions or comments about it?
I just have one comment.
Please.
There's 11 parcels, I think, just north of the site. And I know that you bet willingly, the petitioner did, to lower down to 2 levels. There's 10 other people that are probably gonna come at you. So just something to consider, because once we change from residential large, we're stuck to multifamily housing until someone else comes along and petitions. So you're gonna concede now, perhaps for someone who's close in that parcel, but something to consider.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. Good luck, Mr. Tui.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
The next item on the agenda is HWC Comprehensive Plan Update. As we're getting ready, we're going to take about a 5-minute bio break.
Yeah.
It's been a long meeting and getting ready to go on.
No, that's what.
down the knowledge. To save up for the three of us.
I can get one of these just for the sun. I don't know his title. I could sit for a minute and a half, try to turn on the lights all day. If I turn right. Can I, we'd like to complain to about that.
And let's see. Kept it 15, I started 9.
I found. I did this.
I mean, I don't see it, just kind of right here to be able to afford that. We didn't start. No. My eyes on
I will shut stuff down.
Okay.
Gardner.
Every season.
Start on the cheap. I gotta allow it.
I looked up, I was like, oh, what we doing? I should remember since I'm our representative.
But
I know.
that's just.
I play, all right, I don't think so. Sure. What's up? Let's make this change. Vegas.
Okay, we have all the commissioners back at the podium.
All right. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Adam Pieper. I'm a community planner with HWC Engineering. I'm also joined by my colleague Alex Foreman this evening. I know it's been a lengthy and serious meeting, so very much appreciate letting us come talk this evening and just give a little bit of an update on the process for the comprehensive plan update to date, some of what we've heard and where we're going. So we were last here in August of 2023 and have held a number of both in-person and virtual community engagement efforts since that time. At that meeting, if you recall, we were promoting the in-person workshop that took place at the library on September 12th. We had well over 100 attendees at that meeting, certainly filled the room, and we're really happy with that attendance. It was organized around a variety of stations that correspond to the city's 4 pillars: infrastructure, economic development, public safety, quality of life, and then we also added a 5th land use focused station. Some of the key things we heard there, things we unsurprisingly heard earlier this evening,
concerns about traffic and intersection congestion, opportunities for placemaking and quality of life projects to enhance resident and business attraction and quality of life, expanding bicycle and pedestrian trail networks, and then encouraging smaller scale retail and more local businesses throughout the community. That in-person workshop was also duplicated online through a community survey and interactive mapping tool. The community survey had over 250 responses. Happy with that. Obviously, would always like to see that a little bit higher. We did create a separate high school specific survey that had another 50+ responses. And as we look forward, and I'll touch on this a little bit, we're going to create another survey for our next round of community engagement. And we'll look to be promoting that in the coming weeks and hope we can drive input up with that one. In addition, the online map that you see in the bottom right there included over 300 different individual comments. And then in addition to creating new comments or drawing trail routes, identifying potential development areas, users have the opportunity to kind of thumbs up, like, or dislike existing comments. So we had over 2,000 kind of reactions to those 300 initial comments. So, and overall, I'll say the community survey, everyone generally saw Greenwood in a very favorable light, really positive responses across most of the organizing kind of themes. Again, those 4 pillars plus land use. In addition to the broader and open community engagement efforts, we had a series of targeted stakeholder meetings. There were 11 meetings organized around different topics: quality of life, housing, education. I won't go through all this list, but one of them that was special was the high school student government at Greenwood High School. So those 10 first meetings kind of featured more than 75 participants, and then we talked about another 40 kids that represented the high school student government. Energetic and very active and interesting group, and we're looking to go back and meet with them as we continue on in this process. And then finally, we had a booth set up at the farmers market early in the process, and then also at the Greenwood High School versus Whitewood football game before the rain showed up. And those were input opportunities, but also really those are used to just make people aware of the process, drive them to the website or the in-person engagement events. So some of the key themes and things we heard from there and how that's starting to translate into the goals for the plan. In terms of land use, certainly promoting reinvestment and redevelopment in some of the key underutilized or vacant areas of the community, while also understanding there are continued growth opportunities to the east and south. Understanding that, you know, when the current conference plan was drafted in 2007, there were certainly a greater supply of potential development sites. That acreage is diminishing, so really making sure that we're using new development to meet kind of residential diversity goals, as well as diversifying job employment opportunities in the community. And then protecting open spaces and how to incorporate them in future development, certainly flood hazard areas, and using some of those areas that can't be developed for park opportunities. One of the certainly important pieces of the conference plan is the future land use map. So we have drafted a new land use map and are refining that with Gage and his team. This will be presented at an open house that's coming up in February. Knowing that the current conference plan identifies much of the east and south areas as mixed use, and that may have been made it difficult for staff and you all in some instances to evaluate development petitions, given that proposals were coming forward for industrial, commercial, residential, and everyone saying, well, mixed use means it could be any of those things, so that's why the comprehensive plan agrees with that. So we're starting to refine that and provide a little more differentiation in what future housing areas may be. You'll also see some kind of perfect circles on this map that don't necessarily correspond to specific parcel lines, but start to reinforce this idea of future commercial centers or nodes and how those may be integrated into new development, as opposed to lining arterial frontages, or again, understanding that as we look at potential growth to the east, needing some commercial development opportunities to serve those existing and future residents, and help prevent some of that traffic flow that then needs to get west of 65. From an infrastructure standpoint, obviously, understanding sewer service is really your primary growth management tool, and how the city elects to extend or not extend or enhance sewer utility availability is really going to be critical to directing and using that to inform potential densities in new development areas. Certainly also have heard, like I said, a lot about transportation concerns, knowing that certainly some of the key arterials, 135, 31 corridor, 65 and interchanges are under state control, working with NDOT to coordinate improvements to those. Certainly a recurring theme through this process to date has been concerns about pedestrian crossings of 31 and 35, especially along Main Street. So we'll be digging into that. And then using new development to make additional roadway connections. Again, as we look at existing transportation challenges, creating more opportunities or more different routes for how someone can go alleviate stress across the network. So using new development to help pay for the cost and ultimately improve that transportation network. And with that, looking to create a thoroughfare plan. Obviously, as you all know, we talked about tonight, as individual development petitions come forward and traffic impact studies are done specific to those, that's critical in evaluating those developments. We think it's also helpful and probably an opportune time in the near future here to kind of zoom out and do a bigger picture look at your entire transportation network, do some modeling related to that, that would account for some of these infill projects that we've talked about, but then also new growth in areas to the east and south. There's some MPO funding that comes up occasionally that helps fund those projects. Economic development, like we said, with new growth, using that to attract higher paying jobs and diversify some of that existing employment base, and growing local and small businesses. Certainly, we've heard a lot about the importance of the Old Town area to the community. I'll get into that with the quality of life recommendations, but not everything needs to be big or a national chain on some of your larger arterials. So how can we mix that in and promote that across the city? And then, you know, understanding the mall is probably the biggest individual tax assessment and tax contributor to the city, and making sure the mall itself stays vibrant and safe, as well as surrounding commercial development and opportunities for maybe additional investment on even mall property and some of that surrounding area as the market kind of changes, and if there's too much commercial space, other opportunities to make sense of residential or redevelopment for mixed use. Like I said, quality of life. In terms of parks, some of the things we've heard is obviously the city has an incredible park system, continues to make parks investments, but starting to return a focus to investing in the smaller neighborhood parks that are closer to some of the residential concentrations and maybe more easily accessible and more benefit those neighborhoods across the city, given all the substantial and recent investments in the downtown area. I already touched on trails a little bit. It's something we've heard in a lot of our engagement efforts, and certainly looking to expand the trail network. Old Town, as I just mentioned a little bit ago, and really becoming this arts, cultural, and entertainment destination, not just for the city, but really on the south side of Indianapolis for the whole metro region. And then recognizing that the established neighborhoods are why Greenwood is great, why people have chosen to live here for so long and continue to move to the area. So really maintaining the value and aesthetic beauty of those neighborhoods. And then finally, from a public safety standpoint, as was mentioned with that last petition, expanding police and fire services in conjunction with growth, knowing at some point there's going to need to be a 6th fire station. Trying, we heard from some of the staff about difficulty in retaining staff. They'll come to the city, get trained up, and then pursue careers elsewhere. So maybe better advertising some of the existing benefits and amenities in the community. We've also heard about opportunities just for improved city communications. That's not to necessarily suggest a deficiency right now, but just more communication generally being favored and better. Certainly as road construction projects and other community building improvements occur. And then ensuring that the existing codes are respected and enforced. And with that, not necessarily that they're not enforced, but just that some of the enforcement mechanisms or violations or fines don't really have enough teeth or aren't enough of a deterrent for some of the frequent violators of certain codes. So evaluating that to make sure they're respected. And then when we talked with in one of those focus groups with Johnson County staff, they talked about their learning curve with the recent tornadoes and with the federal disaster declaration, and just what that meant in terms of record keeping and logistics and all of these things. So continuing a partnership with them on emergency management planning and all the recent lessons learned there. So that was a quick overview of some of the key themes. That's not an exhaustive list, and a lot of the sub bullets that I skipped over are we've kind of made more in-depth strategies related to those. That is what we'll be sharing in addition to that future land use map, definitions or descriptions that correspond to those future land use classifications, as well as future transportation map and trails and greenways map that will be at this upcoming open house that I referenced. So we're working on finishing up some interim reports related to existing conditions, and then a detailed summary of that engagement that I touched on that'll be going up on the website here shortly. In the coming weeks, we're going to have some workshops related to key focus areas. Like I said, the portion of the mall property and North Madison corridor, some downtown focus, some other key spots around the community, and that being the focus of our next steering committee meeting. And then that's working up to this Big Ideas Open House. That'll be Thursday, February 29th, again at the library. That is formatted as an open house. So between 4:30 and 6:30, people can come and go. There's not an official start time and big presentation. There are, again, will be display boards for facilitated exercises. We'll have staff there. Gabe and some of his team will be there to answer any questions that residents may have. And what we really achieved or hope to achieve with that meeting is a confirmation that we're on the right track and any course corrections that are needed before we move into then creating the initial draft of the plan. So encourage everyone to attend that meeting, help get the word out would be very much appreciated. We understand that in-person meetings don't work for everyone, or that time may be a challenge. So all of the content that will be at that meeting will also be duplicated in a survey that will go on the website. We're also going to create a little introductory or explanation video to correspond to that. And then that'll all go live the day after the open house, so March 1st. We'll leave that open for a while. And like I said, take all of the feedback gathered at that event, review it with the steering committee, make amendments as needed before we then move into drafting the plan. And then we would be targeting a late April or early May community presentation. And that is the more formal, here's the start time presentation followed by any discussion. But we welcome any questions. Yes, sir.
You have that in the PDF form? I like to see, feel, and touch.
Yep.
I don't like to see though, because I can't hardly see it.
Sure. Yeah, I can get it to Gabe and then he can
They've
distribute.
got
it.
our email.
Great.
That way I can think about it.
Yep, absolutely. I know,
I see if any of my pet things need to be in there.
9:45 on a Monday may not be the time for all of the comment. I certainly understand that. When I send it to Gabe and he sends along, my contact information's in there. So anytime, if you'd like to have a phone call or sit down and chat about it, would welcome that opportunity.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you very much. Gabe, I can't believe I'm asking this. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think the only thing I'd say is drive home safe tonight. I think we're getting some rain and some weather. So just be careful on your way home, and I appreciate you guys sticking out a long one. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, do we
Thank
plan
you
for
very much.
overtime on this?
Yeah, can I ask my councilman for a special appropriation?
Yeah.
You can
Somebody
ask,
already
but I'm
asked
going to
him.
encourage you not
Oh,
to.
I have to
I'll
say
work
my
on
thing.
it. Adam, thank you very much. Is there any new business from the floor? Seeing none, are there any announcements? I will accept a motion.
Move to adjourn.
David?